Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Bennington Board of Selectors special meeting relative to water resources budgets for the fiscal year 2016. I'm Tom Jacobs, will chair the meeting. Stuart Hurd to my left, Terry Morris, Director of our Water Resources Program, Jim Carroll, Michael Keane, Donald Campbell, John McFadden, Sharon Brush, and back to Melissa. Is there anybody else that's going to, not Melissa, but Michelle Johnson, are you going to be coming up? You want to say? Melissa doesn't want.
She's only going to come up if she has
Okay. So without further ado, let's get into the budget so we can decide on what we do for next year.
Okay, just a brief overview. Basically, the water and sewer fund budgets this year increased by 2.7 and 2.1% respectively. We're pretty proud of that. We did have to work somewhat to get it to that level, principally because we had in mind a 3% increase in the rates, which is what we indicated to the voters when doing the water bond, that would be the target that we would not exceed, and we didn't. The budget's relatively straightforward this year. There's not a lot of great stuff in here, other than you might focus on the capital asset schedule, which is attached in each of the, at the end of each of the budgets, and gives you an idea of the purchases we're to make and the projects we hope to accomplish. And the other key document, I think, is at the very end. Melissa Courier has calculated the rate increases, and prior to that you have the debt management portion of the budget where we've highlighted, and I'm sorry those of you who didn't get this printed in color, you're going to see yours in gray, but we've highlighted those projects that affect the debt management portion of the budget in each case. So I think it's appropriate. You've all had an opportunity to review this stuff, to really open it up for questions if there's something. And Donald, this is your first whack at it.
Yeah.
So if you, what would you like for more information from us before we got into this? Or
could you maybe explain relative to the depreciation schedule and the reserve transfers, how that all fits into the process?
I'm going to look to Melissa to explain that, because
That's why I knew she wanted it.
those are her calculations, and the projects, we give her the projects, she tells us what depreciation is necessary and how it increases. So
I'm sorry, you're asking about the depreciation amount or this capital asset schedule? I'm not sure.
The appropriate depreciation, how we've arrived at.
Oh, you have a asset system that I use, that I maintain all of our assets in, that will project depreciation for us. I've taken those figures and manually added on the purchases that we plan to make, the capital purchases that we plan to make for FY16.
And one of the reasons I'm asking the question is that, see, historically that we've been challenged by a lack of a good depreciation schedule up until a couple of years ago.
actually, it's been now at least 6 years, perhaps 7.
Well, we've been working towards being fully funded.
Yeah.
It's only been the last year or two, depending on whether you're looking at water or sewer, that we've been fully funded for depreciation, and we are now fully funded.
I mean, let me just highlight the projects we intend to do in the water fund this year, and it's on the capital asset schedule. The Benmont Avenue water line is the water line that is being attached to the new rebuilt, reconstructed bridge. That will give us a factor of safety. It will give us actually 2 connections to the northern part of the water system. The other one is under the river near the footbridge, which was exposed. A portion of it was exposed during Tropical Storm Irene. And so we want to do this in order to give us that factor of safety. PRVs are pressure reducing valves. And right now we have pressure reducing valves within the system at Burgess Road, Fillmore Street, and South Branch Street. They are not currently tied into our radio signal system or the SCADA system. And so we are going to be doing that this year. We have in mind to purchase a compactor, which is a unit that goes on the backhoe, which allows us to compact the fill as we complete digs. We're replacing a 2007 Chevy pickup truck. That's right, Terry, thank you. That was one of the things that we had to hold on. And then we've got some window replacement and insulation at the water treatment facility. That is a building that was built in the early 70s. Am I correct on that one?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So those are the major projects in the water system. As Melissa's already indicated, that creates an increase in our depreciation needs when we propose to add these. In the sewer fund...
Excuse me, Steve,
yeah.
why do you list the other two things on this?
We wanted to show what's out there. These are things that we decided not to do this year. Originally, they were on the schedule, but when we got done with the budget and saw what the impact would be, we had to pull some of these projects off this particular year's budget, and you will see those next year, probably in the 2017 budget, because they are needs, but we were trying to stay within that 3% increase.
Does this CO2 system, Terry, is this more efficient or something? Would this use less of the CO2?
The CO2 is, right now currently we're renting a tank from the people who supply us. And we had an opportunity from Claremont, New Hampshire. They did away with their system and had a fairly new tank. So what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be bringing it to our site this year, and then we have a 1-year obligation with the current people who are supplying this product, because we're in the middle of a 5-year contract. We have to give them a 12-month notification, or we have to pay for it anyway.
Right.
So we're going to continue to use that system.
What is it used for?
Pardon me?
Terry, what is the CO2?
The CO2 trims our pH at the filtration plant. We adjust the alkalinity and pH to eliminate copper and lead leaching into the water. Creates a coating on the interior of the pipelines, protects the water from being contaminated with lead and copper. So we were going to put that system in place this year. We realized that we had a 1-year obligation to Air Liquide, which is our current supplier. So we're just going to bring the unit here this year, put it online July of next year, which will be FY17.
That's it. But that won't affect that. It seems like there's a big increase in CO2 cost this year. That
Yeah.
won't affect, it
No.
won't be any more efficient or...
That was actually just a costly product. And one of the things is, there are not a lot of people in New England who use the CO2 system. It comes from, I believe, Pennsylvania. And we put them on notice that we may leave them as a supplier come July 1 next year. That will give us a year to research what else is available. I know that when we originally started this project, or started this system in our upgrade in 2006, we didn't really have a lot of choices. Now we have a couple of choices to really look at and try to pin down a better contract for.
Yeah, especially if we have our own tank.
Right.
So that's good.
Yeah, and we maybe actually see some savings because we'll be buying in a greater bulk.
Thank you.
If we think about sort of benchmarking ourselves against other communities, for example, in Vermont, how would our 2.7 and 2.1% compare to similar towns in Vermont? Do you have any idea of that?
I really don't have any idea. My guess is that they would compare very favorably. Those increases are relatively small for basically a project-driven fund or an enterprise fund. So I feel very comfortable. I mean, normally we see increases in the range of 3 to 4%. One of the things that's impacting our ability to add projects is the fact that we continue to see a reduction in use. We moved
Significant.
pretty much to, other than single-family homeowners, most of our businesses and multifamily residences are now metered.
Yeah.
We've seen a drop in the usage there, and that relates also to a drop in usage of the sewer treatment facility. So we're in that balancing act where we're seeing reductions in usage and still having to meet certain operational expenses.
You know, so that goes right with their underlying decision to push forward with economic development and
Yeah.
activity.
Exactly.
Because, you know, if you have companies that are moving and they're basically turning the faucet off and the sewer lines off, when we bring new companies or businesses in, that's going to increase the use, which we have plenty of capacity for.
Right.
And so this is all, it's amazing how many of the budgets are driven by what economic development needs to take place. Because as you're
The other
saying,
thing I'd like to point out is that last year we had a 0% increase.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a 2-year kind of a process, and I think that's why there are more items on there than we would like to see to be able to do, but realized when the numbers came in that it just wasn't going to be able to do everything.
It may not be that I need to understand this, Stu, and maybe I need some Melissa time, but how do you,
you got it tonight.
the transfer to reserve,
Yeah.
how do you get at
Yeah.
that? So I see it, but I can't really work backwards on it.
The transfer to reserve account is made up of two things. It's actually the funding for the capital projects, so the capital purchases that we're going to make, and then it's actually a physical transfer to reserve. So after we go through all those items on that capital asset schedule and use the funds that we've and use those funds, then what's left is able to transfer to reserve for future projects.
So how do you, so if I'm looking at the water, let's see, if I'm looking at the system's $284,000 transfer to reserve, where would I find that?
Well, you look at the capital asset schedule and you see that we have $132,000 worth of projects. That's the first bite out of that $284,000.
Okay, yeah.
And then the second bite is really an ability to put money aside, not exceed the rate increase that we promised we wouldn't, and still be able to budget for future projects. So we're attempting to build the reserve. At the same time, we're using the reserve to meet our capital asset needs. So it's not a number that has a true basis. It's after everything else is done, we know we need this much to do the projects, and what else can we put in there to hit our rate increase at 3%?
And this is relatively new in context of, like, last year's budget had a $365,000 reserve transfer. The years prior to that, for a bit, didn't have any reserve.
Yeah, we rarely exceeded $100,000 in our ability to move the reserve.
Yeah.
So we've made great strides with the budget that we provide. The systems are both financially healthy, and so we don't want to lose that health by being too restrictive in how we set aside funds.
I'd like to add just one more part. There's actually, and I apologize, I should have said this, there's one more part to that, and it's the depreciation. We have this high level, but as depreciation goes up, and it will when the South End Water Project is completed, this dollar amount here in transfer to reserve will also be adjusted so that the money can then go to the depreciation line item. Those are the three areas, actually. It's the actual transfer to reserve, the funding of the capital projects, and depreciation that all work together with this schedule.
It's very helpful.
If you have other specific questions at all, just please jump in, but why don't I review the capital assets plan for the sewer fund. Here we plan to buy a new jetter, replacing or actually, we're gonna maintain the one we have, correct?
For me,
We're gonna are we getting rid of our old shed, or are we simply?
that's with trade, so
Okay,
we
there's a trade.
cleaned out the,
So what is it?
it's a cleaning unit for the sewer mains. Like, it's a water jetting, high pressure. We got it in 2002, so it's going on 14 years. It's our main maintenance piece of equipment for the entire sewer system.
A little gizmo they pull around in the back of the
Yeah,
truck and
yeah, I've seen it.
open the manhole cover and stick it in.
Following that, we have, and this is an estimate, $50,000 for sewer main rehabilitation, and here we're using pretty much exclusively now slip lining, where you literally put this material into the pipe and then put it under pressure, it blows up and seals the pipe. We are currently, I think the estimate is about 1 million gallons a day of inflow and infiltration into our system. That's correct. We have a 5.1 million gallon capacity plant. Anything that we can eliminate from inflow and infiltration gives us additional capacity at the sewer plant for development and for growth.
So is this like the road system only underground each year adding?
That's the idea is to improve a section of pipe each year. We may not spend all of that 50,000. It really depends on what we can identify and where we'll get the biggest bang for the buck. But that's the goal.
I've seen this thing demonstrated on television, it's pretty amazing.
Yes.
I think I need to see it. This might not be appropriate for the camera, but I've been sort of wondering, how do you get the material out of the pipe first before you,
It's like a balloon that goes in there.
but you wouldn't want that thing expanding out against the sludge and whatever that's in the
You
pipe.
clean the sludge with a jetter unit.
Yeah.
So high pressure jetter you drag through,
I see, that
and
gets
then
everything out.
suck it out at the
Uh-huh.
nearest point, dispose of it at the treatment plant. So you have a clean
Clean,
segment
yes.
of line. Then they do a bypass and they lay this material in, and it's like a fiberglass almost material that expands and they pull a plug through. Some of it is cured in place, some of it is done by steam. There's a number of different ways. And now they even use like a flexible type of a PVC, thick wall PVC, and they go back and cut services in from the interior of the pipe. We have had this in our budget for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's been, I know last year we cut it out completely, trying to keep our budget level funded, but our system is old. We have a lot of maintenance to do, but there are a lot of areas where the size of the pipeline is adequate for the capacities it sees. So that's when we pretty much would use the slip lining and not have to replace or upside lines that are kind of overburdened.
Is it more of a quick fix, or is it a
No,
long term?
it's a permanent.
So is it 20 years, 40
Uh,
years? Is it-
I want to say that they may claim it's 20 year, but I think if done properly and the pipe is in pretty good shape to begin with, I think it can far exceed that. My thought it would be closer to a 50-year fix. I mean, we have clay tile that's been in place for 100 years and it's in great shape because it was put in properly and bedded properly and hasn't been abused. But there are areas where we put clay tile in where there wasn't adequate bedding and good material, like on Main Street, a lot of bony material, old riverbed. Some of that's deteriorated quite badly. So a lot has to do with the environment that it's in and how it's installed.
Okay, moving along then, we're going to install a propane heater at the maintenance garage. This is out at the wastewater treatment facility itself. And the major purchase this year is 4 RVC gear drives. They run $22,000 a piece. We have 32 RVC units. It's a rotating biological compactor. They are a huge wheel basically that turns through the material as it's leaving the plant. It's loaded with bacteria, so it picks up the solids and pulls it essentially. That you grow the material on these cylinders. What are the cylinders? 14, 15 feet in diameter? How big are they?
Here, 15.
Yeah, so it's a very large unit. They're all encased, but it looks like a row of Quonset huts down through the wastewater facility. Over the years, we have simply been replacing the gear drives. These things were installed in 1983, so they have long lived their useful life, and we've been replacing the gear drives because that's the first things to fail. Unfortunately, they're so old now that it's getting harder and harder to find parts. So, and we're in a process right now where we've got
We have 11 offline of the 32, and by state mandate, we're supposed to have 24 online. So we have 3 that we're making kind of quick repairs on right now to get us back into compliance. But I received a letter today from the state wanting to know clearly when these other 3 were going to go back online so that we were at what's considered for us to be a full capacity. What we have done is we have robbed off there's 4 trains of 8, and we only run 3 because our capacity is such that we don't have to run for all 32 units. But over the years, due to budget constraints, we've had to take units off, some of those 8 that are offline. The state really wants to see us have 32 available units, should we need them. That's what the plan, if we go to a point where we're at a fuller capacity, we'll have to have 32 units online. So we have kind of pirated off those 8 units, and even to the point now we're 3 units down from where we need to be. This will get us back up to where we need to be in compliance on a day-to-day operation. But the state has indicated they want to have, eventually, they want a time frame for us to be able to have all 32 units ready to go online.
If they run out of leniency or whatever, do we start facing fines?
We haven't been yet, because our effluent quality has been very, very good. We're far below what our standards allow us or what our permit allows us to discharge in the Williamstown River. But as we said that we have an I&I problem, if we have a very heavy rainy period, our flow goes up considerably. We can see flows go from 4 million gallons a day to 15 million gallons a day during a real rainy season or runoff in the spring. We were lucky this year, the spring kind of came gently, we didn't see that harsh runoff. But so the state wants to make sure that we're going to be able to maintain an effluent quality that is going to be within our permit requirements.
But you've got the time to get up above 24 before we start getting fined?
I believe so. I mean, there was no indication of fine. We told them
and
that.
I don't think they would fine us. The fines would be levied only if our effluent exceeds our permit limits
I see.
For a period of time, because there are times it may, and we have to report those just like any other facility where you end up violating your permit limits. But we have not had that problem with wastewater treatment facility. We have had excellent effluent in spite of all of the age of the plant and the age of the facilities that operate that plant. But you're probably going to see over the next 2 or 3 years, this line item will show
Repeat
up
itself.
every
Continue.
Yeah, which makes
until we've
sense.
replaced all the gear drives with brand new gear drives.
What is their useful life usually? What would be the
Useful
useful life?
Probably 20 years.
20, okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
on a standard,
And you've got 30 out of them, so.
yes.
32.
Yeah.
Good work, Gary.
But we have been replacing them along. We had the misfortune of the original big drive units were flawed by the material that some of the interior gears were made of were not hard enough to carry the load of the RBC train. I came on in '87 as a superintendent, and the plant had gone online in '84, and we were already starting to see catastrophic failures. We were sending units back and having them repaired for about a 10-year period, and then finally the people who supplied the original gearboxes sold to another company that were done warrantying and taking care of these. So at that point, probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, we started actually replacing the unit with new units. The cost has gone, I think some of our original units were around $15,000, down up to about 22.
Is there any benefit to buying in bulk, like 4 or more, 6 or more? Do you get a better bang for your buck? Or is it pretty much a fair trade price?
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of suppliers that we did these with, but there aren't a lot of people that produce these particular type of gearbox.
So, I mean, that really is the sort of the body of the capital facilities effort under both budgets. As I indicated in the presentation, insurance costs for us actually went down for the property and liability this year, which means we had a very good year. The preceding year, our workers' compensation rates increased, but they did throughout the state. Any business that provides workers' comp insurance would have seen an increase in the rates. Ours did not go up as much as one might anticipate because we have had an excellent safety record. So those increases were kept to a minimum. And then we're down to, the nitty-gritty. What are we going to do with the buildings? I try to highlight those things that change year to year, and I would open it up to questions to try to work our way through this. I don't. It's, from my perspective, it's not a magical budget year. It's pretty routine, which is, I guess, a good thing for us in the community, and we'll continue to see increases, and we'll continue to see some of these same issues continue along.
So the bottom line is a 2.7 on the water side and 2.1 on the sewer side.
One of the things that you'll see on the sewer fund highlights at the treatment plant.
Actually, I changed that.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
What he was referring to is in we talked about removing the materials from the digester. It was one of the major expenses that we see this year. We had to clean the digester, and the material that came out of it was pretty nasty stuff.
We attempted to take.
Is that a technical term?
We attempted to do this cleaning on our own and just have the material hauled to landfill or incinerator. We got into it last year and just realized that it was way more than we could handle. We hired out a subcontractor who does this for a living, a very large one out of Rhode Island, Pennsylvania area. They came and they worked about 3 or 4 weeks on it, and they threw their hands up and said, you give us this much and we're going to walk away, because it's way more than we anticipated, way more than, So we had to have a second contractor in, and between the hauling and proper disposal, we went up to northern Vermont. So hauling fees and disposal of the material we took out were a substantial part of this. And we really thought we set up some, what we call cracking tanks, where we could remove the solids and drain off the liquid that we removed from these big digesters, which break down the sludge. And we were having a lot of problems with very large rags and things getting caught in our pumps. We're seeing an increase in pump maintenance and motor failures. and it's been 20 years since they've been cleaned, so we've been kind of walking a fine line, but when we got into the first of the two primary digesters last year, we realized that we had to do the second one before we were going to be having issues with breaking down the sludge and meeting our meter compliance standards. So that number jumped considerably, about 60,000, because we got quite an education this year on what it's going to take to properly clean and dispose of the material that's been storing up in there. So, big number.
So the second one, the second one has yet to be done, is that what you just said?
That's what we're
We
budgeting.
did the first one and we're budgeting for the second one?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, that's why it took.
And when I originally wrote this, I called it the primary clarifier, because that's another unit that's out there. Terry caught the mistake. I was able to change it before we sent it on to you guys, so.
So Stu, looking at this budget, I know we're talking 2.8 increase on the overall budget, but I guess the concern for anyone at home isn't necessarily gonna be how our budgets change, but the impact on their bill at the end of the
Right.
3-month period. So understanding that we might have less usage of the sewer system or water system, that could mean that the increase is gonna be larger than 2.7 or 2.1.
The rate increase itself is actually 3%.
Okay.
And we've calculated that using the actual flow over the last 2 years. We've watched how it declined, so we're anticipating a slight stabilization of those flows. We don't think we'll see a major decline again, but when you look at the rate sheet, the rates are for this coming year, the flat rate will go from $111 a quarter to $114 or $115 a quarter. The per gallon charge or per 1,000 gallon charge will go from $4.12 per 1,000 gallons to $4.25 per 1,000 gallons. And the meter surcharge, which is a fixed fee basically for those metered users, will go from $67 to $69. So.
And that's what we were targeting when we were talking about the bigger
Well,
projects that were coming through.
That's right. We want to maintain these rates at no more than 3%
Yep.
increases over the next several years until we bring that whole south end water tank project online.
Mhm.
And then we'll have to take a look at where we go, because that is truly the last major necessary improvement to the water system. And because the bids came in so attractively, we had bonded for $3 million. The bids came in at around 2.1
Yes.
million. We're actually going to be able to take and extend the water lines, which was an integral part of the project, from the Southern Vermont College entrance all the way down Monument Avenue to Dewey Street, then down Dewey to tie back into the lines at Week Street. And that will leave us only with improving the lines that are existing in the system at Weeks and up into Jefferson and Crescent Boulevard, the higher elevations. So it's going to allow us to substantially complete the entire project when we had hoped only to get the water tank and the pump system in place. So that's all very good news, and that still comes in under the $3 million bond, so we won't exceed the bonded amount at all.
So there'll be additional users on the system.
Well, we'll pick up a few, because the college will be the big user, and they're gonna pay about $24,000 a year in water fees to the system. Plus, they're gonna be paying on a quarterly basis their prorated share of the project costs. But once you get over that hill, you've got maybe 12 dwelling units. I mean, if you get beyond the hospital entrance at the north end, I think Charlie Dewey has a multifamily property there, and you're up and over and down onto Dewey, and you've got, a number of single-family residences, but you're not going to pick up a lot of additional customers.
So,
But it's still important to do, even though it's gonna be $900,000.
It's important to do because at some point, once the tank and the pump station are in place at Southern Vermont College, we still have to connect that system to the higher elevations of the water system in order to be in compliance. So we're gonna be able to do the lion's share of that new main and still be within the bonded amount approved by the voters.
So the bottom line on this, the flat rate customer is gonna have to see an annual increase of about $20. About $5 increase per quarter.
Per quarter, yes.
On the water.
Well,
On
yes.
water
on the
and sewer, combine both of them.
Well, no, well,
It's
the water,
$195 a quarter right now. So I just paid
Water.
my bill.
We can talk
Yeah.
about sewer.
well, but the water rates themselves will go up $4 a quarter. So that's 16. The sewer's only gonna go up $3 a quarter, so you're right.
So it's
You've done the math.
I did do the math. So I will move that we accept this budget as presented.
Second.
3% increase.
Michael, can I hear a second?
I second, yes.
Okay. Additional discussions, questions, comments?
Just that I think when we move forward, this is more of a discussion of future planning and goal planning. I know with a lot of budgets, we have certain targets, and it's because of our need to provide a certain service at a certain level. But we will be looking at where this hits the end users, and 3% increase when their salaries aren't typically increasing by that amount won't necessarily be acceptable, and we'll have to try and figure out how to get around that. Hopefully, after getting through some of these big projects that are underway, we'll be able to manage that a little more.
Well, yeah, and I would expect the rates would stabilize, perhaps 3 to 5 years out. And but one never knows.
Right.
If you have additional users during that 3 to 5 year period, is that going to positively or be a non-issue?
Actually, if the gallonage increases, the rates will decrease. As long as our operating expenses don't
Yeah,
change
right,
dramatically.
rather than.
Well, it sounds like our capacity is there where
Yeah.
the main overheads wouldn't actually go up as significantly as the income that would be generated from the
I
additional.
mean, if you combine our water treatment facility from Bowles Brook, that system, with the Morgan Spring, we have 6 million gallons a day available to us in the water system itself. We're using currently,
1.8 out of the Bowles Brook
yeah,
and supplementing
with
with
Morgan Spring. And as I said, the sewage treatment plant is 5.1 million gallons, and we're using 2.1, 2.2, somewhere in that
Right.
range.
So the capital, the inventory, and the management that we have set in place can take on more users with almost a
Absolutely.
negligible
Excellent
impact on
capacity,
our
yeah.
budget.
Absolutely, and I can tell you that when we upgraded in 1983, we were closer to 3.5, 3.6 million gallons of usage. We've eliminated a lot of inflow infiltration in the system over the last 30 years, which has benefited the capacity. So we have room for growth, and as the use goes up, the cost per gallon will go down, unless you cross that line where suddenly you're using a lot more product to treat the material that you have to treat.
Right.
Any other questions? I'll accept the decision on the motion. All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous to all those present.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Keeping the system running.
Great job.
Yeah.
For 30 years,
Yeah,
soon to be.
Terry, how long have you been with us? 30?
I mean,
Like I said,
How long?
87.
Yeah, well, that's
When
when
he
that's when he became
jumped over.
superintendent.
Superintendent,
Right,
he worked for a
He
lot
actually
longer.
started us as the operator of the water filtration plant,
Okay.
and that was 38 years ago, 30?
39 and then.
Well,
Some big milestones.
Yeah, we have a number of long-term employees.
Yes. Valued at that. Thank you, Bernard.
Great job, there's a lot of knowledge.
Is there any other business to come before the board?
I'm not going anywhere, so I'm going to
We don't have any other business.
Okay. I accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thanks.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you.